You're listening to Advancing Our Church. Welcome to Advancing Our Church, a Changing Our World podcast about Catholic stewardship, leadership, and advancement. And I'm your host, Jim Friend. Well, welcome back, everyone, and thanks for downloading the show today. Do you ever feel like your calendar is so full that you literally could not put another meeting in Outlook or it would just crash? That's kind of how my calendar was this past week. It was literally one of those weeks where I have no idea how it happened, but I hit all my marks, I met all my deadlines, and we got everything done, including getting this podcast out on time. But one of the things that I haven't been good at doing lately, to be honest, is to exercise. You know, one of the things I admire about my dad is that he has always taken good care of himself. In fact, next year he's going to turn 80 years old. And if you ask my mom, he still runs around like he's in his 30s. Last year, I remember talking to my mom on the phone, and they have this single-story house. It has a flat roof in Sun City, Arizona. And Dad was on the roof putting down some tar. I mean, here he is, 78 years old, on the roof of their house, working like he's in his 30s. It drove my mom nuts, but God bless him, he's my hero and my inspiration. Not to get on the roof. I have a 2-story house that does not have a flat roof, and I'd probably fall off and die. But more to the point, to get back on the treadmill and keep trying. I don't know about you, but my calendar is never going to be empty. And so I need to find some time to take care of myself and exercise and move. And I hope you do too. As we move into this really busy fall season, it's easy not to take care of ourselves. So I hope you're making some time to take care of yourself. But for now, let's get back to work. This week, I had the opportunity to talk with Dan Cellucci via Zoom. Dan is the CEO of the Catholic Leadership Institute, and I just want to apologize ahead of time because we had a little bit of feedback on Zoom. We tried to clean it up, but you still might hear a little bit of feedback, and so it's not you. You're not hearing voices, not yet anyway. But Dan is a tremendous resource to the church with extensive experience with leadership at all levels, and it was really an honor to have him on the show. We talked about ways to engage parishioners and really answer the big question, will people be coming back to church? And how are we engaging them so that they will come back to church? I think you're really going to pick up some great tips like I did and learn a lot from Dan. So without further ado, here is Dan Cellucci. Okay, well, welcome to Advancing Our Church. We're so pleased to have Dan Cellucci with us today. I'd like to just offer a little intro to Dan. And Dan, I'm excited to chat with you about all the great work happening at CLI. Dan,
thanks, Jim.
So great to have you here. Dan is the CEO of the Catholic Leadership Institute, an apostolate based in the suburbs of Philadelphia, providing leadership, training, and consulting to more than 250 bishops, 3,500 priests, and over 25,000 deacons, religious, and lay leaders in more than 100 dioceses. Dan has served with CLI for almost 17 years. Prior to his election as CEO, Dan served as Senior Vice President for the Catholic Leadership Institute, working as the primary liaison with bishops and overseeing the apostolate's marketing and services. Dan is a sought-after advisor, consultant, and presenter for the church. And Dan is a native of Philadelphia, but most importantly, he and his wife, Tricia, are the proud parents of 4 children. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Jim. Thanks. It's a great honor to be here. Appreciate it.
It's great to chat with you, and always great to meet a fellow Philadelphian. I mean, I live in Allentown, but I've been down to Philly so much, I feel like I've adopted that.
We'll take you. Our reach is far. We'll welcome anybody who wants to be a part.
You know, Dan, it's always neat to meet someone like yourself, who has also kind of been called to ministry, you know, through most of your career, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been. I saw you did a brief stint at Newman College. I saw, and then you've been at CLI for quite a long time. How did you find your path into ministry?
Yeah, so great question. And actually, my path to CLI even started before that. I was the apostolate's first summer intern, if you can imagine. And so,
really,
I was involved. I'm born and raised here in Philadelphia, and was really involved in community service as a high school student. And that was connected through the Archdiocesan Office of Youth and Young Adults at the time. And so when I graduated from high school, I went to the University of Richmond, and my first summer back in Philadelphia, the youth office called and asked if I would help kind of be a student leader on a retreat that I had gone on as a high school student. And I said, you know, we'll pay you a few bucks over the summer. And they said, also, this guy, Tim Flanagan, is looking for a summer intern. He just started this thing called Catholic Leadership Institute. They're getting some office space at that time out of the youth office. So I was like, yeah, sure. I was looking for something to do that summer, and I met Tim and Matt, our former CEO, and I just really fell in love with the mission. I fell in love with the church, honestly, that summer, and had been born and raised Catholic, had been active even really, but I just found a real deep sense of calling that first summer. And so I stayed in touch with Tim and Matt. And then shortly after I graduated, as you mentioned, I worked at Newman College. And then they got a grant to bring on another full-time employee. And so they offered it to me, and that's where I've been ever since. So it's been just a great ride, a great blessing for me personally to kind of be able to grow in my faith, to understand the church, to see her in so many different parts of our country and our world, and to just understand kind of that communion that we share as members of this beautiful church. So it's been a great blessing for me.
I've gotten to know CLI a little bit over the years. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, you and CLI, and I got to know Tim a little bit, but I'll bet our listeners would love to hear a little bit about how CLI got started by Tim, because I don't believe Tim came from a ministerial background. He was
not furthest thing from it. I mean, he again, lifelong Catholic, but he was just a huge leader in the financial services industry. Was just sought after general agent and business leader and wisdom figure, and moved around the country a lot, and actually got kind of interesting story for many people I'm sure listening who are active in their church. Tim was living in Denver at a time. He signed up at a new parish, said he wanted to get involved. Nobody called him. And then he moved to Kansas, signed up for a parish. Nobody called him. And he moved to Philadelphia actually, and registered in a parish, and lo and behold, somebody called him back, and that started his involvement. He was a lector, a Eucharistic minister, and then he went to the Church Ministry Institute in Philadelphia, which was kind of a program at that time run out of the seminary for lay leaders. And he just again got a sense like, oh gosh, maybe God's calling me. So he, like you, Jim, he started to discern the diaconate, and thinking maybe that's where the Lord was calling him. He had always loved leadership and professional development, and had seen the value of it in the corporate world and how much money and time was being invested in developing human potential. Had seen it in the military, all these different areas, and could not understand why it wasn't more present in the Catholic Church. So he went on this Fortune 500 leadership retreat for business executives out in New Mexico, and literally was riding a horse. Was thrown off that horse, and was lying there, and just felt this sense of calling. Wow. St. Paul to bring the best in leadership development to the Catholic Church. So he wrote out that mission statement on that retreat the next day, came back, told his wife, like, I got to kind of pursue this. Still kind of maintained his business for a number of years, but really started knocking on a bunch of doors, and everybody told him he was crazy. And then finally he met a priest of Philadelphia, Father Chuck Pfeffer, who has passed away early in his 50s. But he said, I believe in what you're talking about, Tim, and if you help me build young adult leaders here in Philadelphia, I'll help you kind of navigate the church. And so they formed a partnership. And the first 10 years, that's how I got involved, was really focused on building young adult leaders here in the Philadelphia area. And then the second 10 years, we kind of looked around and said, where is the biggest hunger for leadership development? And it was our priest saying, hey, look, I got a lot of great formation in the seminary, but very little of it was toward this leadership office that I'm called to. So we had 10 years of really just developing and offering this program, Good Leaders, Good Shepherds, that has taken us to over 100 dioceses, as you mentioned. The last 10 years has been spent kind of going even further with that, with some consulting services, some research on parish life. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, but it started with a wild ride on a horse with Tim all those years ago.
Yeah, well, what a tremendous gift that he's given the church too. And you think about, how long has it been? Has it been 20 years, right?
We literally just celebrated 30 years in July. So we're
30 years, my goodness.
We're 30 years, July 4th. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, great. I mean, Tim, when you talk about those leaders in the church that I think have, like saint quality, I think Tim's there. He is, I think what makes him special as a founder is his humility. Many people might know about CLI, they actually might not know about Tim. And I think that's part of his beauty, is that he has always been about investing in other people, and has certainly been a mentor and great gift in my life. But he's just always looking to kind of get people to where God's calling them to be, and really at no personal gain. And so that's been a great blessing to CLI, but I think, as you said, a great blessing to the church.
Absolutely. Well, and if you talked about a whirlwind, and of course, we've been in a whirlwind for the last 17 or 18 months so far. And, in preparing for the interview, I was looking at some of the talks that you've given, as CEO and as on behalf of the Leadership Institute. You gave an amazing talk back in December on the OSV talks about what happens if people don't come back to church. You just that question just kind of rung in the air. You said, you asked a simple question: what if people don't come back, right? And I was curious. I'm sure you got some great feedback on that talk.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I mentioned a couple times, I was, that talk was to me. Yes. It was from me, but it was to me, because you do so much work in the church, and I don't know about you, Jim. I mean, you had extensive ministry in the church, but as soon as the first weekend when things were shutting down, I said, this is a problem. I mean, my stomach dropped. And because what we've been doing, especially the last 8 or 9 years, has been studying a lot of what's going on parish life, really at a granular level. What are our people who are in the pews? I'm not even talking about the 60 or 70% who are not.
Right.
But in the pews, what are their practices or beliefs? And we were making, before COVID, a lot of assumptions about where people were. And so when that happened, I said, this is not going to be a good thing. And so I just it was on my heart and on my mind. And I was blessed that he offered me the opportunity, but I wanted to put it out there. And I think for me, I always try to look at, what's the opportunity, what's God kind of putting in front of us, and where is God in this? And that's really in the possibility to look at our own life, the possibility to look at our parishes, and to say, okay, this is hard, this is challenging, but anything in our faith that is worthwhile, as we know from the cross, is those things, is hard and challenging. And so what is before us is very much can be devastating, but it also can be an opportunity for self-reflection and for innovation and for possibility and for thinking differently. And so it
really has been, right? I mean, and you made that point a couple of times in the talk, and look at what we accomplished in such a short period of time, getting masses live streamed, getting collections, more parishes doing online collections than ever before. I mean, that would have taken decades more. And it really shows you that people, first of all, it shows their love, I think, for the church and their commitment to it, but it also shows you what we're capable of when we're really pressed to make something happen like this.
I think the last point, and certainly I agree with the love and connection, but I think the last point is the one that's most instructive, because in our work, we're talking about leadership training, we're trying to change behavior, and we wrestle all the time and try to help our leaders wrestle with what we call assumed constraints, right? I can't do that. We'll never find the people who would be willing to do that. We don't have the ability to do that. We don't understand technology. I don't like email. I've never recorded a video of myself, right? All these kind of things that are not necessarily untrue, but are kind of keeping us, stuck in a certain place. And I think this unlocked a lot of those, right? I mean, I talked to so many pastors who were, allergic to social media beforehand, sometimes for a good reason, right? But it was like they pushed themselves to do that, and that was for the good, I think. I think this whole idea of what we're capable for, I think we just have scratched the surface, and I hope we lose that sense as we start to maybe be able to do some things that we were used to doing. I think we still have a lot more potential that we're not realizing. So.
Well, and I think it kind of goes back to the thought of, well, when people come back, or people have this sense of, I want things to go back to the way they were. And we know that business, if we go back to the way we were working our way out of business, I mean, maybe that's an over exaggeration.
I don't think it is.
It's a Christian faith. We've been around for 2,000 years. However, I mean, when you're looking at 2/3 of most parishes, half empty or whatever, it's crazy. So we don't want to go back to the way things were. I think we can use this to propel ourselves to the next level, right? I would imagine that is that how you all are looking at it, or are you trying to gain some groundswell to kind of move parishes to the next level beyond this?
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm most trying to do, Jim, is help people understand that the change is inevitable. Like at this, change is going to be inevitable. So
yeah,
people who are looking for some type of status quo situation, it doesn't exist anywhere. So
no.
The change is happening, and it's going to either happen by continued just kind of crisis, things are happening to us, or it's going to happen by our choice.
Right.
And those choices involve maybe pain or sacrifice, but they actually can bear great fruit. I mean, one of the misconceptions that I think it's really important to look at, people ask me all the time, we do a lot of surveying on parish life. We did it before the pandemic, we're doing it during the pandemic. Oh, it must be a big difference. Well, I'll tell you, there is a big difference. The parishes, there's a winnowing effect. So parishes that are making great effort to be in relationship with people, to be highly communicative, to try to engage people in creative ways, to do things they never, and try things that they never tried before, their parishioners are responding to that. So parishes that were displaying that are displaying more of that and are being rewarded in the minds of their parishioners by that. Conversely, parishes that were not able to communicate and didn't try to figure out a better way during the pandemic, just kind of relied on people showing up, weren't trying to kind of speak into people's lives, they're falling fast. And so, again, both involve change, right? Two very different types of change and with different outcomes. So what we're trying to do is kind of paint that choice, because it is a choice that we have right now that we need to make right now. I speak with a sense of urgency for it because I'm watching it and I'm sure you're seeing it on a national level. And so, which choice are we going to make, folks? I mean, that's Jesus is always going to be with us, but he never promised our parishes were. I mean, that was never the deal. So we have a choice to make here, and which one? And I think it's one that every individual Catholic has to make. How willing are we to get uncomfortable, to take some risks, to do things we've never done before, to be open to some things that we've never tried before in our parishes.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of the book by Father Michael White down in Maryland, Church in the Nativity, where their focus for years has been not just the people in the pews, but he called him Timonium Tim, because they live in the city of Timonium. The people that are outside, we need to be drawing them in. I think we need to be doing that now more than ever, right?
Absolutely. What I like to say to people is, like, if it's just been 18 months and your parish hasn't heard, like parishioners haven't heard from you, or why would they come back? Now, I'm not asking that because I don't believe in the value of Sunday Mass or the obligation to attend.
Right.
But from their perspective, we have people who weren't really sure why they were going in the first place. Right. We have lots of people who were going out of habit or culture, which was great. We welcome them there, but now you take a situation where they've been kind of isolated from the world, and if the parish didn't make a difference in their life before the pandemic, and it didn't try to make a difference in their life during the pandemic, why are they coming back to that, right?
Right.
Regardless of their concern around COVID, they're going back to travel soccer, like they're going back to other things, right? Those people are desperate to get into because it's relevant to them. And so the church has what we all need, but we have to be present in people's lives and figure out different ways to do that. So I think that whole a lot of people, I think, misunderstood, or I shouldn't say misunderstood, they glossed over the real value of Rebuilt, the book that you're referring to. That level of intentionality, it wasn't just kind of Timonium Tim. It was saying, what makes him tick? Where can we find him? Where does he get his information? What are his concerns in life? Like, it was really thinking about where he was, and therefore how the church could be present to him. That level of intentionality. I mean, I can't agree more with Father White and them about kind of thinking through where people are and having that missionary mindset. I think that's a really good way to describe that missionary impulse that Pope Francis has kind of been, calling us to in that.
One of your talks, I think it might have been the OSV one, where you mentioned some people are just calling, some parishioners are calling to say, "Can I just pray with you?" And
Yeah.
some amazing things were happening out of that. What a simple and yet beautiful suggestion for a committee to get together and really be ambassadors for Christ, right?
Yeah, and what's so interesting? So parishes will call. I mean, we have lots of parishes that we help, and so parishes will call and say, like, tell us what we should be doing, right? What are other parishes doing? So I would say this, like, I mean, we have some data that would even show parishes that were doing that saw increases in their offertory. They didn't even weren't asking for money, but their offertory was actually going up from pre-COVID numbers. So I would say that easy thing you can do. Any parish can do it. You don't need any technology. You just need a list of phone numbers. Call people. Father doesn't have to do it all. You can get volunteers to do it. It's a great way to get. And the number of parishes that would say to me, "Oh, we can't do that," and I would say, "Well, why can't you do that?" Well, gosh, people's privacy. And I said, "But they gave you their phone number,
Right?
their church. Like you're not calling to ask them their social security number. Like you're calling to check in on them. Oh, well, what if everybody gets so many calls?" And I'm like, "But you're not, Erie Insurance or State Farm, like, no offense to Erie Insurance. You're like the Roman Catholic Church of Jesus Christ. Like you be at the top of priority list, So it was a real sense of confidence, a lack of confidence that I observed with so many parishes, like, oh, we aren't worthy of people's time. And it's like, whoa, like we got to reshape that mindset. People need faith. They need the church. They need Christ. Like entering in with that mindset, I think we're missing something. So yeah, I mean, a simple gesture that goes a long way, and still sometimes those assumed constraints are holding us back.
Yeah. I saw you had done a workshop just last month, I believe, for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, and I believe it was on tips for welcoming parishioners back, communication tips. For a pastor or maybe a layperson who's listening, what are some of the ways in which we could be welcoming our parishioners back?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's most important is leading with your person. And so, you do a lot of work in this, great work in the stewardship space, and people, whether it's their time or their talent or their treasure, people give to people. People invest in people. They give because of relationship. And so sometimes we come up with elaborate, systems of communication and all these types of things, and we forget that it's two human beings trying to communicate, right? So I can tell you how many times we spend so much effort on the strategy, but then we're like miserable to each other. It's like we're wondering why communication doesn't work. So one of the things I think I tried to emphasize was how important our just emotional intelligence, our relationship is as we're doing that communication. The other thing, I think trying to create instances where, again, we're present in people's lives. We were talking before we started the recording. My son has been dealing with cancer for the last year, and our family could not have gotten through that without our parish. And it wasn't in any big flashy ways. It was really in small, individualized, one-on-one types of ways where either our pastor or a staff member or a family, a volunteer was just reaching out to us, and that we'll never forget that, right? I mean, that type of communication is what keeps people, and they're not doing it just to keep us, but they're doing it authentically out of mission, but it will keep us. I mean, us in that parish, right? So, so many people are dealing with so many hard things right now, and I think what the church has to do is to say, we are here. Like, we pray, can we do those types of things? So thinking where people are in their lives. The other thing that I would say from a strategy standpoint is to really think about segmentation. Very distinct segments in all of our parishes, and they might look different, but don't try to communicate one thing to everybody. Try to communicate very specifically to certain groups of people. So communicate to your young families in a certain way. Try to communicate. You might be communicating the same overall content or message, but the delivery mechanism, and the last thing is to try to get people who look like them. And by that, I mean, if you're going to try to communicate to young families, get somebody who's a part of a young family to communicate the parish message, right? It's a great way to leverage volunteers. And they're in a common phase of life. They're going to be more likely to relate to each other. So those are some of the things I tried to lift up.
Sure.
Perennial principles, but also some things like segmentation that I think really help to drive home a message.
Well, talking to your audience and talking to your audience, I think via different channels, maybe being on more than one social media platform and not just doing email, but certainly doing email. I mean, different generations seem to be engaged in different levels of electronic communication versus in person. But one of the things I thought that was impactful that you said in the talk was just kind of that ministry of presence. You know, they may not remember what you said, but they'll remember that you were there, right? And I think sometimes when I worked with different pastors, they underestimate the importance of their own just presence. You know, it's not, they don't have to come up with a beautiful speech. They don't have to have something prepared, but just those, you know, just being there, just being among the people. I used to work with Bishop Barris, who's now in Rockville Center,
Yeah.
but when he was in the Diocese of Allentown, he was everywhere. He was at every basketball game. He was at every, you know, CYO event. He'd, you know, work the stands with the parents. And it wasn't that he had a huge message. It was just being present. I talk with people who said, I never met some of the other bishops, but I've met this bishop like 4 times in the last year. Like he's just always there.
We actually have some data, Jim, on this, that a parishioner in the United States is 11 times more likely to recommend their parish if they're likely to recommend their pastor. We've obviously studied that because that's a huge, factor, right? I mean, 11 times, it's really about, you know, that presence is so important. So we looked at that and we kind of looked at, well, what are some of the qualities of guys who are really, and without a doubt, their presence was just everything. And so I can't, you know, double down on that point that you just made more. That, you know, we don't need flashy programs. We don't need big speeches, right? We just have to be there. Our son did a little lemonade stand this summer to help raise money for cancer awareness, and Archbishop Perez showed up like
wow,
like 90 degrees coming from a confirmation in his blacks, and he just kind of showed up. He's like, "Can I get some lemonade? What's it cost? That's expensive. You know, you get a clergy to discount. You know, but again, you know." If I look at that from a catechetical moment for my children, they will never forget that the Archbishop of Philadelphia showed up for them, right? Mm-hmm. He spent maybe 10 minutes. I mean, they will never forget that. And so, you know, just how important that is for them, you know, and so for all of us, we all want to be known, and to be loved, and to be in kind of acknowledged. And so, you know, for our pastors especially, but also for our key ministry leaders, just the way we can be more present in each other's lives, I think is the best thing we can do right now.
Absolutely. One of the other messages you had, which I thought was great, people sometimes don't always get the message, and we think, well, we put it in the bulletin or we made an announcement at Mass, but you know, you made the point, you need to say it enough times where you're actually sick of hearing yourself say the message. And saying it 7 times or something, you know, is kind of like the standard rule. But I think that was also such an important message because, like I said, and you've said, people get their information from different channels in different ways, and we just have to keep repeating that message.
Not only that, Jim, but we're so with content right now. I mean, information, right? And so I'm sure you do a lot of webinars and things in your ministry. Yeah. So, you know, I always have this joke with my colleagues because we're constantly obviously doing webinars.
Yeah.
So I will put it on the slides. I will say it 4 times during the presentation. Like, I will send you these slides session. How many questions do I get? When are you going to send us the slides? When are you? And I know, you know, and I'm one of those people, right? Like I'm doing other things while I'm listening, or I'm getting, my kids are want something from me. So we can't assume that people are kind of sitting, waiting to read the bulletin and you know, studying or highlighting every word that might come from it. You know, as pretty as it might be laid out, it's one way, it's a good way, but you're gonna have at least 10 other times where you're like, didn't we already say this about 1 million times? You know, and again, once you start asking that question, like, do I really need to say it again? You probably are just starting to reach the people you're trying to reach. So. You know, it still drives me bonkers. So I get it for people in ministry that they're like, really, do we have to do that? Yes, we really have to do that. Unfortunately, kind of the attention span where everybody is right now.
So Dan, what has been your focus, or how has it changed during the pandemic? I would imagine you've been working, and we've all been working differently, but how have you kind of fine-tune your message or your work with parishes and dioceses over the last 17 months?
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, given what we were doing and are doing, I don't want to say it hasn't changed much. I think it's become more urgent. And so
Sure.
always have been, especially in these last 10 years, have been really focused in on parishes kind of creating a direction and a plan for the future. So what does this parish need to do right now and in the next kind of 3 or 4 years? So obviously what we pivoted to really quickly was just helping pastors and parish teams kind of navigate the realities of this current time period.
Right.
But one of the things that is really required is a good sense of direction. Where are we going? Because people are looking for any semblance of stability and direction and a path. So, so I think there's kind of mini plans or mini directions that need provided right now. How are we going to reopen class? How are we going to reopen school? All those different things that are really urgent and on the minds and hearts of our leaders. But I think we can't lose sight of the longer term. Like, what are we trying to build for our communities? And let's not lose that here. In fact, that sense of future is really what is going to give people kind of the motivation to kind of keep going, to stay involved, is like, let's keep our eyes on the prize. So that's always kind of been a part of what we've done. We've really tried to kind of double down on that. And I think, the other piece that has become more pronounced in the OSV talk was a big part of that is people being a lot more interested, thankfully, in what is working, how can we share best practices, what are other parishes doing. So we're just blessed to have a really big database of parishes that are doing great things. And so, our ability to try to mine that and connect people, I think, has a greater focus over these last 18 months for sure.
And how do you work with dioceses or parishes? Do they engage you as a consultant individually, or do you generally work with an entire diocese? Or how does that work for you?
Yeah, I would say by and large, Jim, our partnerships are on the diocesan level, and they are really diverse. So we have some partnerships with dioceses where we're doing some ongoing formation for their priests, like in Allentown or other different places. And so usually that's just something that we form, working with the bishop and his team at the diocese, and then could be for parish leaders, it could be for priests, whatever it might be. We also have a number of pretty exciting national pilots going on. And so we've received grants from the Lilly Endowment and from other really generous Catholics to actually find partner dioceses who want to participate in any places like parish renewal or helping our priests, be the best that they can be from a leadership standpoint. So we have, like this year, for example, 6 dioceses that are a part of a national pilot. Again, all those funds are kind of put forward, and we're just finding people who want to kind of partner with us. So, and then we do have, I would say probably about, every year about 50 parishes or so that just kind of contact us individually and want to do something on a training or planning front, and we're happy to do that too. So multiple different ways, but mostly at the diocesan level.
From a philanthropic standpoint, do you? I would imagine you probably have some donors. In fact, I know. Actually, I've spoken with a couple of your donors, or they've said they're contributed towards CLI, but that they would be willing to sponsor programs for their diocese. In other words, they so believe in your mission that they want to make it available to more people in their diocese.
Yeah, we're blessed to have people who are doing things or funding things in their own backyard, as well as those who are, we've been blessed in the last couple of years to really receive some very transformational gifts that are for us to kind of find dioceses in need to have, not even in their backyard, but they're kind of giving us the blessing of their trust to partner with bishops who maybe don't have the resources in their own diocese or donors in their own diocese who could do that. And so helping us reach a lot of mission dioceses in the US, and even we're working with a diocese in Haiti right now, actually. And that's all made possible by just really beautiful women and men with just huge, generous hearts and a heart for the church.
So where do you think it's all headed? Where do you think it's all headed, Dan? Do you think that are we at the precipice now where a lot of these kinds of services people are more open to them? You think that, I would think that the next 5 years are going to look very different for us as we overcome this pandemic and hopefully invite more people back to church. But do you see that kind of from your perspective, from a national perspective, that dioceses are understanding that now and that change is on the horizon?
You know what? I would describe it this way. So interestingly enough, the last kind of public speech that I gave before the pandemic, so this is February 2020, was to a group of philanthropic investors. And they asked me to describe the church in 4 minutes or less.
Okay, good.
That's
good
fun.
Luck.
So this is how I described it. Again, on the view that I am blessed to have. I said, it's like we're sitting on a beach and there's a giant tsunami approaching. And some of us on the beach, just building our sandcastles, don't know that it's coming, just going about life the way we've always been going about. I think there's some parishes and dioceses that are doing that. We'll get back to normal. We're just kind of keep plugging away. I think there's some of us who are kind of seen it, trying to outrun it, can't really outrun it, but we're going to try to run as hard as we can, doing what we kind of usually do. And I think that's going to be difficult. I think there's some who've, frankly, and this is, I think, the smallest population, gratefully, but I think there's some who've put their arms up and said, like, all right, it's over. Take me. Can't, been doing this too long. I don't have the energy, and I understand that, but I don't think that's a path either. I think there's some of us, and I'm hopefully trying to be one of them, who's like going to try to surf it, and I think we can. I've seen parishes that have and are, and so, but surfing's hard. Surfing big waves harder, but the waves coming. I mean, we when we look at where we were before the pandemic, we were approaching this seismic generational shift in our country, which just going to millennials. With Gen X in between there, that was going to always happen, and it's happening faster, and that's going to affect the way we do things. So again, change is inevitable, and the question is, are we gonna try to surf the wave? And so I hope, and what we're trying to do is encourage as many people as possible, even if you have never picked up a surfboard, like, let's give it a try, because it's going to be better, and God just asks us to be faithful. He doesn't ask us to be successful. And so, I think faithfulness looks like surfing. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be a wild ride, I think, but let's try to do it as best as we can.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, I just want to thank you for being on our show today. This has been just tremendous. Where can people find you?
Oh gosh. Well, thank you. Thanks for doing this, and because it's to listen to other conversations that you've had and feel privileged to be one of them. Our web address is catholicleaders.org, and the best place to find out everything about what we're doing and get in contact with any of our great teams. So catholicleaders.org, and thank you for your good work for the church as well.
Oh, thanks, Dan. It's been a pleasure. God bless.
God bless you. Thanks.
Well, that's our show this week. Many thanks to the Changing Our World podcast team and to Podastery Studios for another great show. Hey, if you're looking for a way to say thank you to advancing our church this year, by the way, we hit 100 episodes in our last episode, do me a quick favor. Head over to iTunes, leave us a quick rating, just say something that you love about advancing our church, and give us a 4 or 5 star review. I'd really appreciate that. That small show of support goes a long way in spreading the word about our show. So thank you for all you do to like and share our podcasts out on the internet, and for all you do to send your encouragement to us and to me personally. And if you'd like more information about our show, please visit us at advancingourchurch.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. Advancing Our Church is a production of Changing Our World, and we are a fundraising and social impact consulting firm that has been advising both nonprofits and corporations for more than 2 decades. For more information, please visit us at changingourworld.com. Well, that's it for me, everybody. I hope you have another terrific week. We have some wonderful guests planned this fall, so stay tuned. I hope to see you back here same time next week. God bless.